Welcome to the ACL TV. This video was created from a full-length article on our health website. I'll drop the link to the article in the description box. After watching, please ensure you subscribe, share, and like.
All right, let's get right into it. I want you to meet someone. Her name's Jane. And Jane, well, she's a real high flyer in the banking world. Think about it. Board meetings, investor calls, audits. She's at the center of it all. You know the type, the one everyone depends on to get things done. And you know what? People really valued her for it. Her efficiency, her dedication. I mean, she was at the very top of her game, serving on multiple strategic committees. By every single measure, she was a massive success. But over time, something started to shift. It was subtle at first, just this creeping feeling of being constantly drained. And I'm not talking about just being tired. This was that deep down exhaustion that a good night's sleep just can't seem to touch. And that's when the joy just started to evaporate. The very tasks she used to love, the things that got her excited to go to work, they started to feel like a heavy weight, a burden she had to drag with her every single day. And what did she do? She pushed even harder because she was terrified of failing. Now, I have to ask, does any of this sound a little too familiar? Maybe you've felt this yourself, or maybe you've seen it in a friend or a colleague. Jane's story, it's not some rare thing. It's a classic, textbook example of what we call burnout. So that brings us to the big question. What is burnout, really? It's a word we hear all the time, but let's go beyond the buzzword and look at the official diagnosis to really get what we're dealing with. Okay, so according to the World Health Organization, burnout is a syndrome, and it comes from chronic workplace stress that hasn't been managed successfully. Now, the key word here, the one I really want you to hear, is chronic. This isn't about having a bad week or a tough month. This is long-term, ongoing stress. And listen, it's not just in your head. Burnout has real physical effects on your body. We're talking about your brain. It messes with your focus and your ability to make decisions. It messes with your hormones, like that stress hormone cortisol. Of course, it impacts your mood and emotions, your sleep patterns, and ultimately your overall physical health. It affects the whole system. So who's most at risk for this? Well, it often shows up in jobs that require a ton of personal involvement and emotional energy. Think about it. Healthcare professionals, educators, social workers. And yeah, of course, corporate professionals in those high-pressure roles, just like our friend Jane. And the scale of this problem? It's huge. Just to put it in perspective for you, one study found that almost 60%, that's 60%, of health workers were experiencing burnout. Just let that number sink in for a moment. 60%. That really shows you just how widespread this whole thing is. It's also really important to understand that burnout isn't just one thing. It can show up in different ways. First, you've got overload burnout. This is the one we usually think of, working harder and harder and harder, chasing success until you're just completely exhausted. But then you've got the flip side, underload. This is when you feel bored, unmotivated, undervalued. There's just no challenge or growth. And finally, there's neglect burnout. This happens when you feel totally helpless, with no support or guidance from your workplace. Okay, so how on earth do you spot this thing? Because burnout is sneaky, It doesn't just show up one day. It creeps in, and the early signs are so easy to miss. So let's break down how to recognize it. Let's start with the physical stuff. This could be that persistent tension in your shoulders, constant headaches, or just general muscle aches. Or maybe you notice you're getting sick all the time, catching every cold that goes around. Trouble sleeping is a big one too. And of course that deep, deep fatigue that no matter how much you rest, just doesn't go away. And then there's the emotional toll, that creeping anxiety, or maybe even depressive symptoms. You might start feeling like a failure, filled with self-doubt. A sense of helplessness can take over, like nothing you do matters. You might feel detached, you lose your motivation, and your self-esteem just takes a nosedive. And all those feelings on the inside, they start to show up on the outside, in your behavior. Maybe you start pulling back from your responsibilities, or you find yourself showing up late or ducking out early. Procrastination becomes your best friend. You might isolate yourself from people, and you might even find you have less empathy for others. And sometimes people start relying on things like food or alcohol just to cope. So let's get back to Jane for a second. For her, the breaking point, it was dramatic. She was on a flight on her way to yet another high-stakes meeting when it all just hit her at once. Extreme fatigue, a blinding headache. She was even vomiting. It was like her body was literally screaming at her, no more. And in that moment, something clicked. She knew this was more than just stress. This was something serious. So she made a decision. She got off that plane. And that one simple act, that choice to stop, that was the beginning of her recovery. And that's the most important part of this whole story, right? Recovery is absolutely possible. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the path back to feeling like yourself again. So the source material actually gives us a really clear 5-step framework for recovery. Step 1 is simply to recognize it. Acknowledge that this is happening without judging yourself. Step 2, create distance. This means taking real time off, like a proper vacation where you actually disconnect. Step 3 is about making workplace changes. You've got to talk to your manager, discuss your workload, and ask for support. Step 4, prioritize self-care. And this means actually scheduling time for rest, exercise, and good food. And finally, Step 5, seek professional help. Talking to a therapist can give you brand new strategies for coping in the future. This, of course, leads to the million-dollar question, do I have to quit my job? And the answer is, well, not always. A lot of the time, making some of these intentional changes to your life and at work can make a huge difference. But, and this is a really big but, if your health is being severely affected and you've tried to make changes and nothing is working, then leaving might just be the most powerful strategic move you can make for yourself. And remember, that is not failure. That's choosing your health. When you boil it all down, this whole conversation is about one thing: protecting your well-being, and thinking of this as an essential ongoing practice, not just something you do when you're already in crisis. I really want to leave you with this powerful line that comes directly from the source material. It says, protecting your well-being is essential, not optional. Just let that sit with you for a second. It's not a nice to have, it's a fundamental part of being a professional, and honestly, just a good human. So after all of this, my question for you is simple. What is one small step, just one thing, that you can do today, right now, to protect yours? Really think about it.
Please subscribe.